Hello, welcome to After Hours. This afternoon, I took our family to the Tucson Comicon. Since we were coming off of Halloween, we had costumes on hand. My daughter and son were Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask. Here's the flyer that they give you. It's pretty cool. Tucson Comicon. Pop culture for all. They had a lot of different events and stuff. We were not able to make it to hardly any of these. In fact, our main intention of going in the first place was because we wanted to put our kids in the costume contest. And unfortunately, we were there 5 minutes too late. They just closed. Gates McFadden was there from Next Generation. That's pretty cool. I remember her character. Billy D. Williams was there. That's very interesting. I wonder if he's going to be in the new Star Wars movies. I kind of suspect no. Guy named Ming Shen, Barry Bostwick. I don't know who that is. I'm sure he's famous. He was at Spin City. They had Nell Campbell. I thought that was interesting. I'm a big fan of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. At least I certainly was when I was a kid, and that would have been really interesting to see her. Walter Jones was there, and so was Kara Ashley. Walter Jones, as you know, was the Black Ranger in the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and he looked great. I actually saw him sitting. He was sitting at this little booth just all by himself. They had this whole little station of this little section of booths for all their celebrity guests, and it was funny to see Nell Campbell and Walter Jones and Karen Ashley all just hanging out there. I remember Karen Ashley was the Yellow Ranger. Is that correct? Yeah, she was on one of the more recent series, and by more recent I mean still pretty old. But it was cool to see Walter Jones. I didn't go talk to him or anything because we had stuff to do, and I think it was extra. But these kind of celebrity appearances are probably the main draw for people, I think, to go get their paraphernalia autographed. And they had a whole bunch of people from the industry to come talk about comics. I met one guy. I don't know who he is because I am not up to date on the whole comic book thing, to be honest. But I found this one booth that I thought was super cool, and it was called Fractured Scary Tales. Or the company is called, it is called FracturedScaryTales.com. I think they have another company name too, because like when I got the receipt, when I bought a comic from this guy, it had another name. But this is a great concept. Like, check this out. They do mashups, basically. They take like classic Hollywood movies and they just combine them with horror tropes. So here you have something with Snow White, and it looks like little demented miniature men that are tormenting her. That's going a little far for me. To me, the Snow White character is pretty special, so wasn't too happy about that one. But here's like, a cool hip retro Godzilla destroying a city. But they had the better examples in the actual comics themselves, so I went ahead and bought one. And look how big this thing is. It is, I'll just go ahead and take it out of the wrap. It's called Fractured Scary Tales, almost like Fractured Fairy Tales, which I think was a Rocky and Bullwinkle bit. But Scary Tales Publishing presents Fractured Scary Tales. This is issue number 1, and you can see right there's like a Clint Eastwood knockoff, but he's gonna battle zombies, and I think there's multiple stories inside. I got another flyer. I'm not 100% sure if this story is by a guy named Kevin Glover, and I'm pretty sure I got his autograph right here. Yeah, Kevin Glover. And I don't know who this guy was, and he may be famous because that's how these things are. But it looks to me like he's printed these out himself. I love the artwork. I think it's great that you can tell plainly that that's Clint Eastwood, and he's gonna kill some zombies. And in the back there's a Frankenstein one. It's I'm not sure what the mashup is here. I think there's actually a bunch of different stories in here. There's a table of contents. So you got Planet of the War Apes, Mummy on the Orient Express, The Maltese Frankenstein, Curse of the Superfly, The St. Valentine's Day Monster Scare. I'm very excited to read these. And you can see the artwork is just classic. I mean, this is classic comic book fodder. They did a great job. And he says that for each of the stories, he got a different artist to help me. You can see the printing job. It's a little bit blurry. And I get the feeling like, it's a wholly and independent thing. He said the same thing that I felt like when I was talking to him. He was a cool guy, and he was like, I kind of got bored of comics and kind of the superhero bent, and I wanted to just take stuff that I liked and take stuff that I already like and turn it into something new. And so that's what he's got going on here. I mean, the guy's got to be great. I mean, he's got great taste in movies. The movie selections that he made are really fun, and his sense of style is just fantastic here. I love the artwork in this. I find it to be, it's a wonderful throwback to classic comics from like the 60s and 70s and 50s even. I guess like independent comics like this, there's all kinds of alternative stories that you could follow. It's not all Marvel and DC superheroes, but let's face it, at this point it's all people really know about. I'm excited to read this. I think this is going to be great. I had the opportunity to buy all three, but I certainly only wanted to buy one because I don't have room for stuff like this, and so I knew I would probably only be able to, I probably won't even be able to do this justice, but check this out. I mean, Fractured Scary Tales, that was fun. I think Claire, she got something cool. I don't have the actual item on hand, but we went to this place called Running with Scissors, and this is the lady right here, and she made kind of like homemade jewelry and girls accessories. But the cool thing was that she put all this like these licensed I don't know if it's legal to do that, just put like Sailor Moon and Hello Kitty and stuff on it, but that's what she was selling, and her stuff seemed like to be pretty high quality, and it was really definitely nice looking. So I don't really care. So we got it. Stacy Scissors is her name on here. She has an Instagram, Stacy Scissors, but she was really nice, and it was a good booth. We enjoyed that. That was what Claire got. We also went to, there's a local game shop here in Tucson, and I'm really into game shops a little bit with the kids. And oh, here's another one of those flyers. They have a kids comic. I should have gotten this because it was only $5. It looks like you could pre-order it, or at least the flyer says. Maybe it did come out. But there's one called Starflake. So they definitely are fractured scary tale. So they're definitely marketing to children too. He saw my kids and thought maybe they'd like this. It's called this Supered Up Monster Kids. It's like you got your Universal monster lineup here. You got the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Mummy, Dracula, Frankenstein. Unfortunately, no Wolfman. I don't know why they don't have a Wolfman. It's like pretty close. I don't know if it's a Creature from the Black Lagoon either. It's got a Z on his chest. It's pretty clear he's a zombie. But you got Dracula and a Mummy and a Frankenstein. And I know it's that the scientist is Frankenstein and the monster is just the monster, but colloquially we all just call him Frankenstein. But this is fun. So we went to a game shop too, and we got One Night Ultimate Werewolf, which is a bizarre name, but it's a sort of like Clue, and that's not doing the game any justice. It's a game that I scarcely understand, but we're going to be learning it because we like to learn new games because we want to make games and maybe possibly sell games like this in the future, because we have a few that we've started to sketch out in hopes of producing them and maybe selling them on Etsy. But when you don't have enough exposure to like what's out there, but this little box cost us $25, and it's a very high quality set here from one of these European game makers. You get all this stuff. It looks like you just get a bunch of like thick cardstock with thick player cards, and I think it's sort of a quasi role-playing game. And the objective is to basically find the it's got elements of Clue and role playing. You're supposed to find the secret werewolf, and when you do, or when everyone's dead or something like that, the game's over and you can just keep playing. But apparently it's really fun. They were really big on it, and our family, coming off of Halloween, is big on werewolves, so we're gonna give it a shot. We're designing a werewolf game ourselves, so we thought we better find out what the other werewolf games are like if we're gonna survive. That's pretty much all the stuff we bought at Comicon. I thought we'd have a lot more. I thought I'd have a lot more to show you here. I found this other cool thing. There was a booth, and they had a children's area set up, and there was this group called Quest for Education and Arts, and they had kind of like and this was very nebulous to me, but they had set up some sort of like, almost like alternative school, like some kind. It's almost like a after school program, I guess, where you can do STEM stuff, but they also want to push the arts. So it's kind of funny. It's like, it seems comprehensive because like STEM is like what, science, technology, engineering, math, but then they call it STEAM because they threw the A back in, and it seems like, well, that's just everything then, because art is so broad, and that's basically everything except what could be literature. So if you put A back in, it's like the only thing you're missing is the social sciences. You might as well just put that in too. So you might as well call it STEAMs: science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics, and social sciences. And what's left? You covered the whole thing. So I guess it's kind of absurd to keep adding that acronym. Maybe they should just call it science and math instead of technology, engineering, and art too. Science and math. That's what kids are deficient in. Anyway. They do this, and they had this cool, fun little booth where kids could come and look at science stuff. It says, education must be enjoyed so that it is remembered and become an integral part of who the student is. Education must be enjoyed so that it is remembered and becomes an integral part of who the student is. I don't know why it must. Seems like education is either I guess if it's enjoyable for its own sake, then that makes sense. But you need to tell me why that would be the case. Like, why this kind of education is something that must be an integral part of who the student is. It seems to me education is really only useful insofar as it is useful. And like, that's maybe the fundamental error of the way we educate children. And with our mandatory school system, is that we create this very broad curricula, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to demand in terms of like what their life demands and what market forces demand. So it seems like sometimes ideology comes in and displaces valuable time and resources that could be spent teaching children things that they absolutely need to know. Like, there's no denying, for instance, children need to know to read and to do basic arithmetic to survive in the contemporary world. But do they really honestly need to know anything at all about ballet? I mean, it's nice to know something about it, to be able to point to it and say, hey, I know that that's ballet. And it seems that's more of like, to me, that seems more like a hobby, to identify ballet. And a lot of the so-called engineering and science education that children get in school, I think, kind of falls along those lines, where it's more like arts and crafts. And science classes in school seem to be more about crafty projects, and not so much the scientific method, because honestly, there's so little that children can. There's so little, and yet there's so much that children can do. But the truth is that the very nitty-gritty of what real scientists do and actual science is careful measurement and rigorous and joyless data accumulation. And real science takes a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of care, and requires careful thinking about methodology, and none of these things are things that are easily acquired via a public school setting. And with children as your main participant, you're not going to get careful measurements, and you're not going to have a patient agent to perform these tasks, and you're not going to have a lot of time, and you're basically not going to get any results because your data is going to be a mess, or it's going to be incomplete, or your methodology is not going to be even completely appreciated by kids anyway. So there's something to be said for maybe the sort of rigorous science education that we impose on kids isn't even appropriate given their age group. And I mean, most Americans don't really understand science, and yet they live in the world, and they do just fine without it. Knowing it's enough to know that it works, or that applied science works, and maybe they don't need to understand every facet of every aspect of the natural world and the technology that they utilize. Now, it's helpful and good, and obviously if you want a competitive edge in the current universe as it is, then you definitely should do it. But it just seems like, I don't know, to make it like such an urgent demand, I'm not moved. I think that's plainly a sales pitch. I'm probably gonna have to cut all of this because I don't want to be attacking these people. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. I mean, that alone is enough to get my dander up. Government-funded nonsense. But anyway, that was Comic-Con. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of scantily clad people dressed like weird things. There were food trucks. Wasn't too into any of that. But we had a lot of fun. I think our kids really enjoyed it. But we're all exhausted now. We're very tired. And so here is a little bit of video footage of our trip. I hope you have a blessed week and that you know nothing else but goodness. I need to sign off. What would be a good sign off? Oh, this will be a good sign off. My sign off this week will be nano nano. Nano, nano. Nano, nano.
Some people hate it, some people love them for it.